Welcome all to day four. This is where the rubber hits the road. All the work we've done up to this point is meaningless unless you know how to interview and then ultimately negotiate. And this is where we're going to go through a lot of specifics about how to properly interview, how to prepare for it so that you're not foaming at the mouth when you're standing in front of somebody or you're on a Zoom call. Just before I get into anything else, any interview stories that you have, either good or bad, that we can just kind of say, this is my experience, and I have like dozens of them, but that's okay. But anybody want to bring one up now that might make a difference in terms of how we look at the interview process through the rest of the evening?
I don't know about that, but when I interviewed for my job as executive director for a nonprofit, I
Okay.
walked in and there were six other people sitting around the table. So basically, the board of directors interviewed me. I
Which
wasn't
is
expecting that many people.
which is a complete surprise.
Yeah.
My daughter, who is still the quickest client that I've ever worked with, made it to Austin with her mother on a Tuesday night. Wednesday morning, 9 o'clock, she had an interview. She knew it was scheduled, but she didn't know who was there. She walked into the conference room. There were four adults, a 9-month-old baby, and a dog. And that was her group interview. And she just adapted to the situation, answered the questions, basically was in a place where people were laughing after about 45 minutes in, and they offered her the job that afternoon. So she's still the quickest turnaround, a Tuesday night to Wednesday afternoon. That's what it is. So, Lauren, Amani, anything you want to chime in here with at this point? Well, it'll come up as we go through this, I promise you. So, all right. Oops. Hold on a second. What happened there? I pressed this too many times, so I'm going to start over again. And never mind. I'm not going to use for some reason it's not working. So let me do this. I'm going to shrink this. You can still read all this, correct? Even if I have a smaller version of it. Okay. I'm just going to leave it at this. Okay. So again, proven interview tactics, negotiate what you deserve. And today's agenda, we're going to be going through what we did for homework, the brief homework assignment last night, and I'll ask each of you to come up with it if you did your homework. And then landing strategies, how do you add value? How do you approach an interview? Key questions that if you can answer these five or six questions, you're going to get to the next phase of the process. And I've seen this hundreds of times in with the clients that I've worked with. Follow up and then what's next? I'm going to go over here. Okay, so in my elemental baseball field diagram here, we're going from second base to third base through interviewing and negotiating, and then we're going to talk about landing strategies. Preparing for the interview is the single most important thing you can do throughout job search. Even though all the other things we've talked about up to this point are important, preparing for the interview is the most important. First thing is this: who do you know and how do you have advocates inside or outside the organization? There's a guy I used to play basketball with in New Jersey, and he was telling me this story. It was, I think, around New Year's of whatever year it was. And he had just gotten back from some interviews. And I said, well, what happened? He said, well, a former colleague asked me to come in to have a drink with him, and he was commuting an hour and a half one way into Manhattan in the insurance industry for over 20 years. So his friend got together and they were talking about the old company and the families and everything else. And finally, my friend Jeff's friend said to him, Jeff, the real reason I brought you here is that I interviewed with a company in Livingston, which is about 20 minutes from where Jeff lived. And they made me an offer. But during the interview process, I got an offer at my current company and a promotion and a raise. I just didn't feel it was the right time for me to move on. And the first person I thought of is you. Would you be interested? Jeff said, 20 minutes? You bet. 4 weeks later, he's in the vice president's chair based on a recommendation from somebody who didn't even work for the company. So your advocates across whatever types of ventures that you're involved in can be the most powerful reason why you get a job. And I mentioned a couple last night of people that I've worked with and myself that had a 23-minute interview after a recommendation from a former colleague. So keep that in mind as you're going through the people that we were talking about. First off, let me go back to this. How many of you struggled or had success with these review of day three, the key advocates that we were talking about? And if you want to just list a few of the people that you were that you wrote down on your list of 10 to 25 and what their relationship is to you, that would be great.
I mean, I basically just thought to the past jobs that I had, and I did a spreadsheet, and I just listed by the job who, and I mean, thanks to Facebook, I'm still in contact in some degree with just about, everybody or many.
Okay. Okay. So would Facebook be the way that you would reach out to them and say, "Hey, would you have a few minutes by phone or Zoom in the next what would from that standpoint, I know you're connected with them, but what would your connection strategy be to quote unquote reconnect?"
Well, it's interesting because based on what I posted on Facebook with my birthday and my pictures and everything, one of my colleagues from when I worked in New York City for 5 years
Hmm.
messaged me and said, "Hey, I work for such and such, you should look into it."
Okay. This is how conversations open or reopen, and it happens every day.
Out of the blue. I mean, I wouldn't have expected him to reach out. I left New York City in 1999.
There you go. It's called manna from heaven, and you don't know where it's coming from. Okay. And I've seen it happen so many times with me personally and with many, many of my clients where you're thinking about somebody and some telepathic thing gets going on and all of a sudden they reach out to you or you say, "Well, I'm going to just pick up the phone," and they say, "I was just thinking about you." Very, very common. And in fact, more common than you give it credit for, but that's great. So what's the next step with this former colleague from 1999?
Well, I wrote back to him and I thanked him for thinking of me and told him, I was in the process of, uh, doing this career coaching, and that I would look and see if this company was located in Florida, and they
Hmm.
are. So, maybe I'll look into it. But it was just nice to be thought of and to have him take the time to email me. And obviously, he remembered the quality of my work from all those decades ago.
So let me ask you this. Why are you surprised?
Um, it's been a long time.
Okay, so it's more the timing and, and the length of time than it was about whatever the message said when he reached out to you. Okay, so I'm going to say this to each of you and whoever's listening to this after we do this. There are people who think very, very highly of you, whether you want to think they do or not. And your reputation and the kinds of things that you did, how you made them feel during your interactions is all the type of thing that you want to be focusing on. And one of the ways of saying is what goes around comes around, and I mean that in a good way, not in the, disparaging way. All right. So, um, Imani, Lauren, any thoughts about that exercise from last night?
Yeah, I did a list. I'm not sure exactly what direction I'm going to be going in, as far as leaving education. So I just kind of was listing like a bunch of people that I know. I just graduated from college like 3 years ago, so I have friends that have kind of gone off to do many different things. So I kind of just put them on the list of they're doing these things. They might know people, in their jobs, but um, so yeah, just like I know those people don't have much experience in the job. They would only have like 3 or 4 years, but still just like having them as people who I don't know, they might know other people who could connect me.
What other way would they have be, what could they be of value to you besides connecting you with others?
I guess just like, telling me about what they do and what their job is like. So maybe they're
Yes,
something I would want to do.
yes. So it's part of your exploratory process is to reconnect with a good friend or partial friend, whatever, it doesn't really matter. As long as the acquaintance is strong enough that you can reconnect with a conversation. Hey, what are you doing on a day-to-day basis? How do you like it?
Hmm.
That is, that does two things. Number one, you're not just calling about yourself. By the way, I'd like to get your opinion on some of the job search criteria that I'm thinking. You're saying, hey, I'm concerned about you and I have good memories of you as well. How have you been doing since we spoke last? Okay,
Hmm.
so that opens up the conversation. People love to talk about how they're doing. And particularly if they're in a situation where they're in a career that's radically different than yours. So then you start to have a dialogue and you become like a TV reporter in terms of assessing whether or not the types of things that they've been doing, the successes they've had, the things that annoy them, whatever it might be, then you can say, hey, do I want to pursue anything like this myself? So
Hmm.
you'll get a series of data points just based on the people you know, and you because you know them, you know they're not going to filter it either. They're going to give you the straight answer. At least they should. And then you say, and one of the questions at the end of that conversation is, or maybe not at the end, but in the middle somewhere is, if I were to get into the field that you're in right now, how would you recommend I do it?
Hmm.
All right. What process would you go through? And they may have had different majors than you. They may have had the same. I don't know. But whatever it is, how would you recommend putting somebody on the I'm looking for your advice. What would you suggest? What would you recommend? Makes the conversation continue because people will respond to that in a very productive way. And again, when you start fielding these data points and saying, you know what, I wouldn't want to sell insurance to save my life. I'm making it up. Or I would love to do real estate now that I've seen what my friend from school is doing. Okay. I don't know. I don't know the answer, but I'm just saying you'll start to make decisions based on your own preferences. And if we end up working together, a lot of the stuff that we do in phase one, which we talked about on Monday, which you saw that whole first day. You haven't seen the second day yet. I'll get that link to you so you can. But anyway, Imani, any thoughts on the exercise from last night?
So for me, mine was really more so family than like certain jobs that I might have came across somebody or
Okay.
friends. Um, because at the time, I feel like most of my jobs have maybe I have came across people that I could have made connections with, but I never really like working at fast food and stuff like that. Most of the time, there's sometimes people have things to share, they've done things or whatever, but I've not yet came across anybody with friends. I don't have a lot of friends that are like elevating in their life, which is another thing that's like a wake up call to me. That goes to show my surroundings. Like a lot of the people, like around me are not really I can't really go anywhere with them, if that makes sense. So when it
Yeah.
comes to family, it's just my intermediate family in Texas. My family's in Ohio.
Okay.
So when it comes to like the most connection I have is my dad. He worked with Google. He was a project manager for Google. So when it comes to like a lot of knowledge, he is my connect. So I like ask him a lot of questions, even when it comes to me going to college. Like he's the person I've really just been having a lot of like of my questions of the directions I'm trying to take and his thoughts of his experience and stuff like that. So yeah.
Okay. So a couple things came out of what you just said.
Hmm.
The key word or the key phrase that you used was my current surroundings.
Yes.
Okay. So that level of awareness in terms of the people you surround yourself with is critical
Yeah.
because there's a mantra, and I've seen this not come true, but be validated on many, many occasions, goes something like this. You are the average of the five people who are closest to you.
Yes.
Okay. So that comes down to being very intentional about who you choose to spend your time with and who you choose to confide in and who you choose to be your, friends or colleagues in whatever way that might mean. And
Right.
and I mean that in the most constructive way that I can say it. You recognizing that some of these people who are basically on the cruise control of life in whatever way that might mean, they go home, they work, they go home, they watch TV, they do whatever. They don't have enough aspiration-based activities around them. If you're recognizing this right now, there's a lot of time to do something about it.
Yeah.
Okay. The time not to do something, the time when it's more and more difficult is the more you get into that vortex of just taking life the way it is, as opposed to being proactive and doing things that you've been put here to do.
Right.
Okay. And, if I saw an article and then I looked at the YouTube video after this, if you look at the number of millionaires in this country right now, 79% of them were born with either nothing or no real inheritance from their parents. 79%. That means they're self-made. There are
Right.
some with a silver spoon, no question about it. But there are also some that got an inheritance when they say under $5,000 from their parents, that might as well have started out with nothing. Okay, $5,000 isn't going to, get you too far.
Yeah, not gonna take you too far.
Okay, so and that number, when you add that number in, it comes to over 90%. So it's really only 10% of people who are currently millionaires started out that way or close to that way from birth. Everybody else in a country like this works their way up. And again, you recognizing this at this point in your life is really critical. I mean, I happen to rub elbows with a lot of my colleagues and former coworkers and people I hang with. I probably have 50 people on this phone who are seven figures and some eight, and one is 10 figures in his
Yeah.
asset account.
And like, most of my friends, like of people around my age, like they're either in school or they're just where I'm at. They're trying to figure it out. So
Okay.
I'm looking. So now that I have done this assignment and like it makes me acknowledge that moving forward, those are the things I need to kind of look for, like people I can connect with. Cause I never even looked at it as like when I go to work, I never thought, okay, like how can I move forward? Who can I connect with? Who can I talk to?
Mhm.
So yeah, definitely was helpful to do that assignment.
If the fact that you could only get less than 10 people for this exercise prompted you to say what you've been saying in the last few minutes, that's more of value than anything else. Okay, or as much value as any other part of this. And it's even maybe even more valuable than actually finishing the exercise at this particular point. Okay, and I will say this, as you're connecting with people who are in different either social or economic or career related strata, you individually, I'm just saying this as a suggestion, recommendation. Do not be shy about doing this because people will love connecting with you. You have a very engaging personality. You smile a lot. You make people feel good about things, even when they might not be. So use that to your advantage. And I don't mean that to misuse it, but recognize that people will warm up to you very quickly.
Right.
Can I unmuted
Go.
myself so I could just tell you that I think you were just absolutely delightful. If I had a company, I would absolutely hire you and put you out there to meet people. I
Yeah.
think
Thank you
if
so
you
much.
set your mind to it, you can go places. My money's on you.
Thank you.
We're gonna call you Money Imani. How's that? And so listen, this is unsolicited feedback from somebody who is 1,500 miles away from you, watching you on a Zoom call.
That really made my day because I had a long day with my son today. And as a mom, I feel like those days can like really just drain you and like you're just trying to go the best you can. Like even get on the Zoom today, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna get on the Zoom, but I rather lay down, but I was like, I'm gonna get on here. So thank you for that. That really meant a lot to me.
Okay. All right. So, um, this PowerPoint thing is messing me up tonight, but I'll deal with it. Um, and we go from there. Okay. Successful interviewing is all about this. It's convincing the hiring manager that you are the right, in fact, the only person for the job. We talked about advocates inside and outside the company. Can you answer these 5 to 7 questions that I'm going to show you here shortly and keep a dialogue going? Your answers must be clear, compelling, and concise. If you're speaking for more than 20, 25 seconds with the initial response to a question, cut yourself off. You're probably going on too long. Earlier in the week, Dorothy was on, and if you were on the call, you remember this. She went on for about 3.5 minutes and I let her go. I should have cut her off, but I didn't want to because I wanted to use that as an example of what not to do when you're answering a question. How did you get in a real estate appraisal? She could have said it this way, and I'm doing this on purpose. I'm recalling this. I'm throwing her under the bus. She's not even on the call. And she said she wouldn't be, but she will see this later. I got into real estate appraisals after getting my real estate license. I had a very bad experience with a potential client who turned out to be a three-time murderer in another state. And he was about to do the same thing to me. And I said, I don't want any part of this. But the next office over was a real estate appraisal guy who liked what I had done, taught me the ropes, and I've been in it 40 years. That's a 12-second response to the question that took her about 3.5 minutes to answer. Okay, so the more laser and precise that you can be with your responses, the better you're going to be. And I'm going to talk about clear, compelling, and concise answers here in a minute. I'm going to use an example that um, may be a little risque, but I'm going to go with it. April 25th of 2015, I was actually commuting in and out of the Newark Penn Station because it was easier to get to the consulting project taking the train than it was by driving. While I was in the Newark Penn Station waiting for the next train, I prompted myself to use the restroom. And I saw this particular, shall we say, banner and sign above the top of the urinal. Now, there are five people in line behind me. Just the fact that I got this picture was a level of dexterity that I'm still proud of to this day. Okay, so I'm standing there, I get, and I see this. It says, saves 88% more water than a 1 gallon urinal. And I said, that's not the way to say this. This company is trying to communicate the benefit of what this whole thing does, but they're not saying it in the right way. Without looking at my next slide, what is the proper way to communicate this? I won't keep you for very long here. I'll go to the next slide. It should say uses 88% less water than a traditional urinal. Okay. It's a tongue-in-cheek example of how to be precise and accurate with your communication. Okay, because saves 88% more water than a 1 gallon urinal. Well, a 1 gallon urinal doesn't save any water. What does that mean? But uses 88% less water is more precise about the real benefit that's associated with it. The whole reason for an interview is to communicate your value, your benefits, your ability to contribute in as clear, compelling, and concise a way as you can. This communicates that in a proper way, whereas the prior slide did not. Okay, I'm on from my New Jersey Penn Station urinal thing. Okay, how do we determine or describe value in terms of what you've done to contribute? I have found there are 5 ways. There may be others, I haven't found them yet. You can either help grow revenue, and that means increasing memberships in a nonprofit organization or some other organization where membership is a big deal. You can cut costs or make things more efficient. You can solve big problems, which is what a lot of IT people do when they solve problems to systematize things that were not automated before. Preventing big problems, legal and regulatory are really good at that. Or you can work with or assemble teams to do the first 4. So those are the 5 ways that you can add value. Every response that you have in an interview should be somehow related to what you did to add value and what the impact was in one of these 5 ways. There are some people that I've worked with who have never done the first 4 in the last 10 years, but they've done the last one to assemble teams to create those circumstances completely for the last 10 years and have gotten great results. Okay, I'm talking about senior level executives now, obviously. But just to give you an idea of what's going to matter to somebody on the other side of the desk or the Zoom call. Key interview questions, 30 to 60-second answers max. If somebody says, tell me about yourself, how would you respond? And I'm going to have all 3 of you respond here because we have a small enough audience here tonight. Not all at once. Come on. Nobody.
I went first all the other time, so
I see.
somebody else needs to step up to the plate, pun intended.
Yes. Lauren,
Um,
Imani.
okay, if I was someone to tell me about myself or ask me about myself or for me to tell them about myself, um, I feel like I'm overthinking this question. Like, you know, when you're put on the spot and then you're like, oh, what would I say? Um, I would probably just say like, um, okay, there's no right or wrong answer. I would say, I am my age. I don't know if like I'm 22 years old. I am a very optimistic person. Um, I'm very like diligent in the work I do. I don't know. I guess.
If this is the first time you're seeing it, that's fine. Okay. You will see it in probably two-thirds of the interviews you have between now and whenever it is that you stop your career. I'm going to admit Scott into the room here. He showed up at just the right time.
Well, the thing about it is, I've been asked this question like pretty much every job I've had. So that's
Right?
why probably like the me being put on the spot. So I don't know if like I'm trying to look for an answer, like the right way to say it versus just like saying it. Like you know what I mean? Like overcomplicating it a little bit.
Okay. So you're already at a minute and a half. You haven't said anything either. Okay. So I'm giving you a hard time. So just go with this. Scott, we're in the middle of interview questions. Welcome aboard. And
Okay, thank you.
the interview question that is now on the table, and you'll have your shot at it too, is tell me about yourself.
Okay.
All right. So Lauren, Doris, and then Scott.
Okay. My name is Lauren Thomas. I was a teacher for the past 3 years, transitioning to something else. I enjoy camping, skiing, and traveling as much as I can, and am hoping to be able to do something fulfilling with my new career path.
Okay. Doris.
So I had the wonderful privilege of growing up overseas. I am American, but I grew up overseas, so I've had wonderful opportunities to travel, still travel today when I'm not hard at work. I enjoy birding, playing the piano. I'm learning to play the ukulele.
Okay. Scott.
Okay. Yeah, I'm jumping in with both feet here. All right. Yeah, I'm Scott Culver. I am a published author and a certified school teacher up through eighth grade, especially in history and social studies. I taught for over 20 years in public schools. And during my tenure as a teacher, I also wrote my first book, which is on my father's, about his most dangerous mission in World War II. Uh, I felt one of my biggest accomplishments as a teacher was I was able to impart to my students a deeper love for learning, greater interest in the subject of history, and I believe they attained not only a better knowledge, but a love for learning as a result of it, which was reflected in a lot of their test and essay scores, as well as the state tests. And with my book, I was able to be interviewed on several television networks, including a major cable network. And I was able to impart the specific story of my father's mission with Jimmy Stewart, the movie actor, on one of their most dangerous combat missions in World War II. And so that's gone around the world. It's had a good reach for an audience in that special genre. And I hope to resume all of that with public speaking and a return to the public school venue.
Okay. Scott, you hit the nail on the head closest in the sense that you were defining what your value might be for a likely interviewer, which could be either a principal, school board, department head, whatever it is. Okay, I'm going to turn the whole question of tell me about yourself on its heels, on its edge, by answering the following way. I made this up about 7 years ago. I've probably had 300 clients use it in one form or another. If you deliver it properly, it lands. First off, when you do tell me about yourself, if you want to do the traditional, I am a marketing professional, I'm a history teacher, I'm a this, I'm a whatever it is, then go into very quick, maybe 15 seconds max. Okay, so Scott, you were somewhere just on the other side of a minute. All right, and I'm not saying it was a bad answer, I'm just saying it was too long for the initial part of what it is. But here's
Okay.
what I'm going to say about tell me about yourself. First thing is this: tell me about yourself has nothing to do with you. It has to do primarily, not solely, but primarily with what you can do for the person who's asking the question.
Hmm.
Based on that, this response, and I'll say it twice, I have found to be extremely effective. Tell me about yourself. You know, there are a lot of aspects of my background that could be relevant for this position. Which ones would be the most helpful to talk about to resolve the issues that you're facing right now? There are a lot of aspects of my background that can be relevant for this position. Which ones would be most helpful to help resolve the issues that you're facing right now? If
So
you
that's what we
think
say to the interviewer.
correct.
Okay.
Now, you might not do that if you're interviewing for a teaching position, but in the private
Right.
sector, where there's all kinds of things that can come along for the ride with a given job, getting specific about what somebody needs you to do is critical. So if you answer the question like I just did, two things happen. Number one, you tell them that you're there to help resolve the issues that they're facing. You're not there with your hands folded in the prayer position saying, I need a job, even though you might.
Yeah.
Okay. The second thing is, and this is more important than the first, is that you will find out very, very quickly what's going on in that department, with that individual, with the company, etc. And you can decide in a couple of minutes whether you want to continue the interview or not. I'll give you an example. Oh, we're launching a new product in 3 months, and I just had somebody leave the company because she's going on maternity leave. I need some help with this, this, and this in order to make that product launch successful. That is your number one priority in terms of every answer that you give in the interview after that. There may be some other things that come along for the ride, but typically the first thing that comes out of the interviewer's mouth to respond to what are the key issues you're facing, that's where you need to focus in on through the rest of the interview. Okay? I could go on at great length about how to answer tell me about yourself and turn it into a dialogue, because the last thing you want to do in an interview, no matter what the circumstance is turn it into a situation where you feel like you're sitting under a 60-watt light bulb with an orange jumpsuit on. Okay? It is not an inquisition. Okay? It's a dialogue, it's an interview with your peers and your colleagues.
Yeah, and I think for me, what I need to practice on, I feel like my nervousness gets in the way. Like out of all my interviews, I can just like remember like anytime I'm put on the spot, I feel the need to like, I don't know, I just get so like and smiley. Like don't get me wrong, I'm a happy person, but a lot of it's more the nervousness than me being happy. And so it kind of like takes away from me being able to answer correct, like in the way I know I can, you know? So
Okay?
I think I'm gonna
Well,
have
here's what I'm going to say. Preparation will take away the jitters and the nervousness.
yeah.
Preparation in the proper way. Okay. And I just, I'll leave it at that for right now. But the more you see, like this whole segment tonight, like I said, is the most important out of all of them, because until you can interview properly, the positions that you're qualified for will remain out of reach. Okay. So I've just done tell me about yourself, and we spent probably 10, 12 minutes on it here. That's not a problem. It's just that I wanted to make sure that you getting into the mindset of tell me about yourself will turn into a dialogue as opposed to a rambling on about, what your hobbies are and you grew up in some part of, Western New Mexico or whatever it might be. Okay, so that's the first key question, and it's a lazy interview question. I will say that if you're getting asked that question, it's because the interviewer is either lazy or wants to trip you up. Okay. And sometimes it's both. All right. So then the next one is going to be what type of position are you looking for and why? This is all based on what's on your resume and your LinkedIn profile. And it should be very obvious, but the why is the part that you really need to understand. The reason why I love accounting, and I'm totally not one who says I love accounting, but the reason why I love accounting is A, B, and C, or the reasons. So by being able to say the why, you'll convince somebody that you're there for a purpose and not just to show up on Monday morning and collect a paycheck. The why is really important. Why are you considering or why are you leaving your current organization? That can be considered a liability question, and you got to really watch it. If you're leaving an organization or you're considering leaving an organization, I'm looking for new opportunities in this space which are not available to me in my current role. Or my company just had a massive layoff and I was impacted. Or they asked me to relocate to Chicago and for family reasons I didn't want to do it. When you have a question like this that could be exposing a potential liability, what you want to do is answer it as short and sweet as you can and put a period on it so that there's no follow-up question that comes afterwards. Okay? Why do you want to work for us? This is where preparation comes in loud and clear. If you've done some research on the company and you've spoken to a number of people who work for the company and they have these great things to say about it, this is your time to relay that information. And I'm not talking about just general, internet stuff that glowingly speaks about every company. I'm talking about key research in terms of the initiatives they have going on, or what is their nonprofit cause, or what are they doing for the community in whatever way that might mean. One of those, or all of those reasons may be why you want to work for us. Give me an example of a time when you, and this is a fill in the blank, when you completed a project under a deadline that was perceived to be unrealistic, how did you handle it? What were the results? This is where doing the circumstances, actions, results from day two will benefit you greatly because this is quote unquote your interview script. You're not reading from a script like you're in a play or a movie, but you are using those examples as reasons why you can demonstrate that you're the perfect person for this job. The reason why the last bullet is in all caps is this. The only reason you have an interview is to answer that question. What I recommend with my clients is that you go into every interview with 3 to 5 bullet points as to why they should hire you. And then I've even seen people who put a note card next to their camera on their computer screen as a reminder to say, I'm going to make the points about those situations or those reasons why they should hire me at different points in the interview, and then at the end of the interview, want to summarize it. Okay, why should we hire you? Now, I I could spend more than an hour going just through that last slide, but I need to move on to some other stuff. Closing the deal comes down to how effectively can you convince the hiring manager that you're the right person and then negotiate what it is that your compensation could be. Negotiations are not like real estate, where you have a piece of property that has certain things going on with it. You may need to fix some things up before you sell it or buy it or whatever. You're negotiating what's the number that you're going to agree on. Okay, salary negotiations or compensation negotiations are not based on that. The best way that I've seen to negotiate up is to let somebody know that you find out that A, B, C, D, and E are part of the job description that you'll be responsible for. But you can also do F, G, H, and I. Tell the hiring manager, let me do G and H along with A, B, C, D, and E and pay me 20 grand more. Seen it happen. Had a client just about 3 weeks ago who called me up and had gotten an offer as an associate packaging director at a major consumer products company in New Jersey. He had been laid off from his prior company just a month and a half before that. And he told me what the salary was. And I happen to remember the first time that he told me about the open position. And I said, go back and look at that initial email. And sure enough, he was at the very bottom of what that salary range was. I said, go back and ask for 20 grand more. And he did. And they gave it to him 15 grand in salary and 5 grand in a signing bonus. And when he called me the next day to tell me that he had gotten that, I told him that I gladly accept tips. Okay, so there are ways to negotiate that make it work. In his case, it was just because they were unfairly starting at a point where they felt he was an associate director. He actually should have been a director. And because they didn't provide that position availability for him, he needed to go higher into the salary range for that position. And he did. How effectively have you built value? After my junior year of college, I did not have a job to come home to for the summer. So a guy I played baseball with said, "Why don't you come sell Kirby Vacuum with us?" Which involved the following. We would go door to door and we would have raffles. And we would say, "Mrs. Johnson, just fill this out. We're drawing for a Kirby vacuum cleaner next Friday." And every Friday, somebody would win. But what people didn't know is if they filled out their name and their phone number, they automatically got a free rug shampoo, which involved a demonstration of the Kirby vacuum cleaner, the rug shampooer, and all the accoutrements that came along with it. So when I would get inside the house to provide the free rug shampoo, I would show every part of that machine. And I would say, "Mrs. Johnson, if you bought a vacuum cleaner, if you bought a duster, if you bought a mattress cleaner, if you bought a shampooer on the open market, it would cost you $1,645. These are actual numbers from when I was doing this. But you can get this Kirby vacuum cleaner all in one today for $595. All of a sudden they're thinking, wow, $595, that's great. Because you're providing all this other stuff that comes along with it. So your whole goal in an interview and everything leading up to the interview is to build your value. And that goes back to the 5 ways we talked about before. After the interview is over, following up is incredibly important. Okay, I found this meme on the internet, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 years ago, and I've seen it several other places since then. So it does make sense. And I'm going to go through it. 48% of salespeople never follow up with a prospect. 25% make 1 second contact and stop. 12% make only 3 contacts. Only 10% of salespeople make more than 3 contacts. But if you get down to the bottom, 80% of sales are made on the 5th to the 12th contact. There are sales managers that I know personally who will not even consider making an offer to somebody unless they get 5 follow-up calls from the candidate. The reason is they want to know that if this person isn't going to sell themselves, they're certainly not going to sell the product or service that the company has. They want to see them follow up 5 times. All right. And that's an exaggerated example. I get it. But my rule of thumb is keep following up with the hiring manager, the HR manager, director, whatever it might be, or with the recruiter until they say stop or until they say, no, we have another candidate. Okay. Stop is usually not what you're going to hear first. They usually be, hey, we already hired somebody else. The whole attitude that you take through job search, again, bad attitude is like a flat tire. You can't go anywhere until you change it. I'm not accusing anybody in this call, particularly on this call, of having a bad attitude. You may have bad moments at certain points in your job search. When you're having a bad moment, go do something else. Don't do job search in whatever way that means. And don't have a bad moment in the middle of an interview. Okay. So sometimes they can be a little contentious depending on who the hiring manager or the interviewer is. Okay. We talked about this yesterday. When is or was the time when you said, hey, enough is enough? I'm working with a coach right now who 8 years ago was on food stamps and she went to the grocery store. She was working 3 jobs and she went to the grocery store using her food stamps, put a bunch of stuff in bags and everything else. She didn't have enough money to cover it. She said, never again will I allow this to happen. And she didn't. Okay. She rearranged a bunch of things about what she was doing. She dropped one of the lower paying jobs and she's very, very successful right now. She's multiple 7 figures in terms of her business. So all of these types of things are motivators. When you run into that moment, I am never going to put up with this again. I am never going to see this. Okay, those are the times when you can make life-changing decisions and think back to that when you have a day when you don't feel like doing anything. All right, those are the moments that really count. A couple of you have already set calls up with me, but if you want to do that, Calendly is great, or just send me a text or send me a messenger, whatever it might be. And let's have a conversation about where you are in this process at this point and how I can best support you going forward so that I can get you past some of these enough is enough moments in whatever your circumstance might be. All right. I mentioned this on day one, but I'll repeat it. Working with a coach like me is an investment in your future. It is not an expense because I've worked with so many people who have gotten significantly higher, like multiple times higher than whatever they invested in themselves in their first year salary. One guy that I worked with back in 2021, he got another job in 2023 at a 40% increase, and then he just got another position at a 50% increase beyond that. So whatever he invested in himself at that point, when going back to 21 and a little bit since then, is pocket change compared to what the eventual outcome was. And I like to say that I have a roadmap to get you to the top of the mountain, which is my book, Finding God's True Purpose for Your Career. And I'm the Sherpa. Okay. And I've never been to Mount Everest for the record. So those are the things that, again, as you think about what to do to proceed forward, will matter. So what you get if you decide to work with me is a complete soup to nuts until you land program, which means everything that you've seen this week and more, and in great detail, depending on where your circumstance is, until you find the job that you're looking for. If you tell me you want to be CEO of Apple, I will say that's probably not a realistic destination. But the realistic destination we will agree on up front, and I'm working with you. I'm kind of attached to the hip until you find the type of position that you're looking for. And it's everything, including, again, this is day one, two, three, four, and then after that, the direction, destination to confirm that. Like, what is your why and how convincing are you in delivering that? Why are you going into this field? Why do you want to work for this company? Your value proposition, resume, LinkedIn profile, outreach and networking, interviewing and negotiating, and then two follow-up calls after that to make sure that your onboarding is going well. Usually I do those at 30 and 60 days. I also have, separate from everything we're talking about now, is a leadership and mentorship program where I work with people for 12 months or more, usually two meetings a month, just to make sure that everything is going well. They get their bonuses, they get their promotions in whatever way that means. And most importantly, we don't have to have the same conversation about somebody looking for a job again 6 to 12 months later because they didn't get started in the right way. All right. Now, so for those of you who attended or have attended this week, I have a sliding scale of this Until You Land program, and it goes from $1,500 for a college grad or about to be college grad up to, let's call it 9,800 for a senior level executive. And we're talking people that are making 250, 300, 500K a year. Today, or because you've been part of this program for the week, those numbers come down to 1,200 for a recent college grad, up to 7,500. Nobody here is above the halfway point. So I can put that to be, nobody is above the 3,500 point in terms of what the total expense would be. If you decide you want to do it in installments, it would be four of 350, which would be a total of 1,400, and it would be four installments of 2,100 if you're a senior level executive. But like I said, everybody on this call is kind of somewhere either at the lower end of that scale or not yet to the midpoint. Common concerns about working with somebody like myself, the cost versus value. I mean, we talked about that before. If you're worth, and I'm just going to use 50K a year, that means it's $200 a day that's water under the bridge for every day that you're unemployed or underemployed. If you're 100,000 a year, it's $400 a day, and you can do the math for the rest of it. Effectiveness and credibility. I've been doing this for 12 years, and I've been doing marketing, advertising, product positioning, people positioning for 25 years before that. And I have a track record with a whole bunch of, and I can send you a bunch of these links to testimonials, which I haven't quite figured out how to get on my website yet, but I have a YouTube channel that has a whole bunch of these. So as far as the credibility, what I have found is that it's oftentimes the candidate that I'm working with who doesn't believe they can get the job done, and they think I can help them, but they're not sure they can do it themselves. I'm here to tell you, every one of you who's been on this call, and all of you have been on for 4 nights, you're all ready. All right, this is what I'm getting to next: personal readiness. Fear of judgment. People will say, "Well, can't you find a job on your own?" Yeah, you could. I mean, you could also go find a job that is half of what you're worth on your own. my goal and my role is to make it so that you find the job that not only suits you, but you're going to enjoy it, you're going to get paid well for it, and it's something that hits the bullseye that we talked about on a couple of days, day one and day two, that Ikigai bullseye in the middle of that Venn diagram. Somehow there's a loss of control. If you've delegated the job search task to somebody else. It's not that at all. You're basically letting go of things that you may or may not be good at right now so that you can get good at them and land in a job that is at the value that you are worth. Unclear expectations. I try to straighten those out. I don't ask people to pay me by the hour or by the month or by the week or whatever it is. What you're paying for is the result, which is the job you're looking for. And it took me about 3 years of doing this before I realized that was the way to approach it, as opposed to, like I said, hourly or monthly or weekly or whatever it might be. Embarrassment or stigma, all I can say is you'll be laughing all the way to the bank. There won't be any embarrassment involved with this. And it's a process. And I'm taking you through 3 days of it right now. And I've top lined a lot of things. I've gone into some level of detail on other things, but just know that we'll go into every level of detail that's relevant for you individually if you decide this is what you want to do going forward. All right. So, if you want to, Venmo or do whatever, what I usually say is I'll put together a one-page agreement that will outline everything that we're going to do. At the bottom of that agreement, it says you would have access to Bill's services until the career transition is complete, which means either a full-time W-2 position, a 6 month or longer consulting or contract role, or I reach out to you 3 times and I don't get any response. I don't anticipate that would happen, but it did a couple times with people, and I just had to put that in there because I had one guy call me back after 2 years. I'm like, where you been, dude? So that's it. I could accept Bitcoin, but it's too volatile right now, so I'll just leave it alone. And that's it. So, um, again, connect with me on Facebook or LinkedIn if you haven't already. I have a lot of work to do to upgrade my LinkedIn profile because I just got out of LinkedIn jail. And any thoughts or questions about what we've talked about so far this evening? No one clear enough, I guess. All right. Um, so
So
there's some, go
not
ahead.
so much this evening, but I just wanted to say, I've appreciated just thinking about these things. So I took the opportunity after my ukulele group and I went to lunch with a few people and I put it out there that I'm looking for work. And one woman, said, "Oh, would you be interested in such and such?" And so, I mean, it's been helpful just to start thinking through this process
Okay.
and making connections here because I don't really know a lot of people well. And I was encouraged by the fact that, I put myself out there and somebody picked up the ball and was willing to carry it for me.
Well, there's another thing that'll happen as we go through this process. Your next post ukulele lunch, your request will sound like this. Hey, does anybody know people who work in this specific industry or with these specific companies? I have a background in A, B, and C, which would really line up with what they do. Okay, so then your request at that point isn't, by the way, I'm looking for work, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. But the more precise you can be about your request, the easier it is for somebody to respond to it. Okay. Any other questions, thoughts, Imani, Scott, Lauren?
No, I think when you and I talk tomorrow about the resume, I'll save my questions for then.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All
Thank you.
good. Okay. Um, there is some homework. By the way, tomorrow night, and I have to figure out how to do this in the Google Calendar. Tomorrow night is not, day 5 will be Monday night, same time, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. All right.
Okay.
And I had a conflict that I didn't realize until Friday of last week that I had it, but I said, oh, I'm going to do these 4 days and then I'll make Friday turn into Monday. Friday will be a summary of everything we've covered up to this point, plus a whole lot of resilience, motivation, trials and tribulations, all that kind of stuff that will let you know that if you're having a rough day in the middle of job search or a rough hour, that will minimize that as much as possible. And I always tell my clients, if it's hitting the fan, you're obligated to text me. Okay. Just okay. That's just what it comes down to. Okay. So day 4 homework, and you can take a screenshot of this, is tight answers to these 5 interview questions. Tell me about yourself. Why are you leaving your current company? Why do you want to work for us? Give me examples of how you added value and why should we hire you? Okay. And Imani, I recognize that at this point in your career development, some of these are going to be not easy to speak to. Okay. Like particularly the examples, but do the best you can. Okay. The example you gave the other day, or was it last night? I can't remember now. Um, Related to your wig business is a really good one for almost any interview that you're going to be part of.
Yeah, that's something I'm gonna have to work on. I feel like I undermine a lot of like my skills or the knowledge that I have, and that's something that I'm really trying to work on. Like I'm always getting like I'm overthinking stuff, and when someone asks me something or whenever, like they're like, "Oh, well, okay, what do you have to offer?" And like interviews and stuff, I'm always like, "Well," and just limiting myself when I know, like, girl, like you're way more knowledgeable and skilled than you think you are. You're just like being put on the spot, and then so I definitely
Okay.
need to work on that.
Okay. Well, again, it's all a process. And the more comfortable you get with it, the more you practice it. And I've done interview coaching where I've asked the same question to a client 6 times. Okay. Until I feel that the answer is going to be compelling enough for a hiring manager to say, okay, you're the person. All right. And that's all part of the process. I mean, you don't see the guys playing in the NBA finals tonight showing up on the basketball court for the second time in their lives tonight. There's a lifetime worth of work that goes into it. All right. So there's a level of patience that you need to have with yourself when you're learning a new skill or you're presenting things in a different way. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead. Scott, I'm not sure if you were trying to say something or.
No, I was just agreeing with you. I was looking it over and just, acknowledging that.
Okay. Okay. All good. So wrap up and questions. I think we've already covered that. Um, and again, if depending on what you want to have for a follow-up conversation with me afterwards, I can do that. It's going to be better for Monday. Like tomorrow, my tomorrow is like completely booked up, but it's going to be better for Monday or Tuesday of next week, Monday afternoon, and Tuesday of next week. And more than happy to talk about what all of this would mean for you individually, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
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 Anything else, Lauren? Thoughts or?
No, it sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, you got it. No problem. All right. We'll see you Monday. I'll get the Google Calendar thing straightened out. I always am challenged by technology. Not that it's difficult, you just have to know the right buttons to push. So I will be doing that here in the next few minutes. All right. Have a good night, all.
All right, you too. Thanks,
All
Bill.
right. Take care.
All right, you too. Okay, bye.